When I was a toddler, my favorite book was Rattle Rattle Dump Truck. Without access to a construction equipment glossary, my 3-year-old brain considered any machine with wheels or tracks a dump truck. And this is the finest dump truck I have ever known. Last week, we used it to finish grading the road at the bottom of Berm Peak, so any downhill trails we build will connect back to the climb. In the process, I got a fair bit of experience using this 20-inch thumb bucket. This week, we'll start building the trail that bears its namesake. This will present yet another learning curve, because it gets steeper up there. We'll also be doing more than just grading a road, all with a much smaller dump truck.
It's pretty small. I'd have gone one bigger, but it's a great machine. This one's a lot narrower. It also has way more power compared to its weight.
So you're saying it's kind of like a BMX bike as compared to a downhill bike?
Yeah, for sure.
I traded in the last machine for a smaller track width, so we could build Singletrack the rest of the way up.
Holy crap.
James offered to give me a refresher, and I'm glad I took him up on that. As it turns out, smaller machines are twitchier and easier to flip over. And if that happens, you'll be renting another dump truck to flip it back over with. It can get expensive, and so I'm following James's advice and being very deliberate with my movements. We're working backwards up the trail, and so first we're building a berm.
You're leveled off, you're not completely leveled off, but you still have a ton of track.
James had me position the machine pointing downhill, so I could use the blade to stabilize it. The key is getting into a spot where you can reach as much of the berm as possible. From there, you dig down to fresh clay and start piling it up. Without a fancy articulating bucket, most of the finish work will need to be done by hand. Since Kevin's gone this week, I'll be jumping in and out of this machine fairly often. But not today. You might remember Joe from when we built the airbag lip. He's as good or better than anyone at building with dirt. So having him help with the berm today is really going to speed things up. This berm makes a hard 180-degree turn, and as such, we want it to be steep. If all goes well, we'll be able to get totally sideways on this thing. Joe also suggested we dig down before the berm and build a roller with a small catch berm to push off of. I was a little concerned about digging down and creating a pond for water to collect in, but we figured out the drainage and dialed in the shape. That's when the machine got pissed at me. So all of a sudden the control screen turned red and I got a high coolant notification. So I shut the machine off. I'm gonna call Kat and see what's going on. Good news is, between the machine and Joe, we got this little berm, a roller, and that last berm packed in. And so, Joe, thanks for coming out and helping.
Yeah, no worries, man, anytime.
For the rest of the day, I'd let the machine cool down and maybe get 10 minutes out of it before it would overheat again. So we were done for the week. But Kat sent a technician out to troubleshoot it first thing Monday morning. So it's a new day. A technician from Kat was out here at 7:45 in the morning. He got it squared away. Fan belt was loose. I'm hoping to make up for lost time. And we were back up and running. So especially if you've never ridden mountain bike trails, it might not be obvious why we even need to take a machine in here. All the stumps are cut. Why can't we just cut them shorter and ride the trail as is? This whole area is steep and the trails are zigzagging down the hill to make the most use of the space. And so we do what's called benching. It's cut into the hill so that you have a flat spot. So whenever we say benching or bench cutting, that's what we're talking about. Now, in some places here, we're gonna have to bench cut by hand, and it takes a long time. And so we wanna minimize the amount of that we're gonna have to do. With this small machine, we can get a pretty narrow track width, but still bench out the trail enough where we can ride on it and it feels like flat ground. All right, really close quarters. I have to get this dead tree out of the way if I'm gonna proceed any further. and then I need to dig myself a platform because you can't see how steep this is. This is a complete mess over here. So, the fun begins. That was easy. As I started to get the hang of cutting bench in the steeps, the very overwhelming prospect of shaping this entire trail became clearer and easier to visualize. That's when productivity screeched to a halt. Again. Okay, so the overheat issue keeps rearing its ugly head. I'll let it cool down for about an hour and then run it for 10 minutes. And in the meantime, I'll just do as much handwork as I can. But by the end of today, I need to have this machine out of the trails so that they can make a more comprehensive repair. And I'm not gonna run over all that stuff we just did. Kat warned me that without getting the machine completely out of the woods, they'd only be able to do so much. But when it failed again, I had cleared far enough to exit the woods in another spot. Only, it would be a little sketchy. With the machine out of the woods, the fix was easy. It may come as a surprise that radiators do not cool effectively when they're caked with dirt. That solved the problem. Lesson learned. And we were finally in business for real. With rain only hours out, James volunteered some machine time to get us some distance for next week. But if we wanted to test what we had already cut, I'd need to grab some hand tools and jump into action, just like old times. It's just way too wet to drag the tamp over. You're actually just better off leaving it. This root is sticking its middle finger up at me for cutting it. So we'll need to pedal in from the mud patch it created to test our feature. We got some rain coming and I really wanted to get some footage in of us riding this, but you can tell the tires are just pushing into this berm and mushing all the mud everywhere. In the interest of showing you guys what it looks like, we're gonna mash up the berm just a little bit. Although it wasn't quite ready, the berm felt real good, and the setup roller was killer. I'm still really slow with the machine, but it shouldn't take more than a few episodes to get completely to the top. And then we'll have a blank slate to build crazy wooden features on. Thanks Joe for helping dig, and thanks James for getting me up to speed. James's bike shop, Squatch, just launched their YouTube channel recently, and so I encourage you to go check it out. As for Joe, we'll be seeing some more of him this Sunday. So I know this wasn't one of our big, crazy, sketchy features, but I'm just happy to be on a trail in my backyard, period. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you start at the beginning and watch the entire series and subscribe so you can see the next one, because you're gonna wanna be there when we rip this all the way down the hill from the top. Thanks for riding with me today, and I'll see you next time.